At the company dinner, my husband Derek raised his wine glass and announced to the table, "She's just an analyst, but I'm the executive." His colleagues erupted in laughter. My face burned. I'd spent 6 months uncovering the inconsistencies in his department's audit reports. I turned to our CEO, Marcus, and smiled. "Should you tell him, or should I?" The room went silent. Marcus's fork clattered against his plate. Derek's smug grin vanished. "Audrey," he hissed, "what are you doing?" The crystal chandeliers above the private dining room suddenly felt too bright. I could see every detail of the shocked faces around the table. Marcus sat frozen, his fork still resting against the edge of his plate where it had fallen. His eyes darted to Helen, our CFO, who sat 3 seats down. Her wine glass had stopped halfway to her lips. Derek's hand found my wrist under the table. His grip was tight enough to hurt. He laughed, but it came out strangled. "Audrey's had a bit too much wine. You know how it is." I pulled my wrist free and kept my eyes on Marcus. The Southern Plains project discrepancies. $12 million in variance over the last fiscal year. I think you know exactly what I'm referring to. Marcus's expression changed. His jaw tightened. He knew. Of course he knew. He'd been copied on my initial inquiry 3 months ago, the one that had mysteriously disappeared from the shared drive. Helen set down her wineglass with deliberate care. "What discrepancies, Audrey?" Derek stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "This is ridiculous. My wife is confused. She doesn't understand the complexity of regional reporting structures." Thomas, our COO, leaned forward with sudden interest. Sarah, the VP of Operations, had stopped pretending to look at her phone. Every executive at the table was now focused on me. "I've been reviewing regional audit reports for the past 6 months as part of my analyst duties," I said, keeping my voice steady, cross-referencing them with actual project deliverables and vendor payments. The numbers don't match. Not even close. Derek's face had gone from flushed with wine to pale. "Audrey, stop. You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" I looked around the table. "Because I have documentation, spreadsheets, email trails, payment authorizations, all showing a systematic pattern of inflated revenue reporting and hidden losses in the Southern Plains division." Marcus cleared his throat. "Perhaps this isn't the appropriate venue for this discussion. Perhaps it's the only venue where everyone would actually pay attention," I said. The rest of the dinner dissolved into awkward small talk and early departures. Derek didn't speak to me as we gathered our coats. He didn't speak to me as we walked to the car. He didn't speak to me during the first 10 minutes of the drive home. Then he exploded. "What the hell were you thinking?" His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "You just tried to humiliate me in front of the entire executive team." "You humiliated me first," I said. "Just an analyst. Like my work doesn't matter. Like I'm some kind of accessory to your career. Your work is looking at spreadsheets, Audrey. My work is running a multi-million-dollar division. There's a difference. Your work is cooking the books." He swerved slightly, corrected. "You have no idea what you're talking about. Those files are confidential. You shouldn't have access to them." My stomach dropped. "How did you know I accessed those files? You think I don't monitor what people in my division are looking at? You've been snooping for months. I've been watching you." The realization hit me like cold water. He'd been tracking my computer activity. He knew everything I'd been researching. "If the files show legitimate business, why would you care if I looked at them? Because you're not qualified to interpret them. You're making wild accusations based on data you don't understand." "I understand numbers just fine. I understand that Cascade Solutions and Summit Consulting don't exist. I understand that millions of dollars in payments went to shell companies. I understand fraud when I see it." Derek pulled into our driveway and sat there, engine idling, staring straight ahead. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold and controlled. "I'm your husband and your superior. You just made the biggest mistake of your life." He got out of the car, walked into the house, and went straight to his home office. The door slammed shut. I stood in the kitchen, listening to his muffled voice on the phone. One call, then another, then another. It was past midnight when I finally heard him stop. I barely slept. When I woke at 6 in the morning, Derek was already gone. His side of the bed was cold. He usually left for work at 8. I checked my phone and saw multiple missed calls from my direct supervisor, Patricia. Then I opened my work email. My access to the shared regional audit database had been revoked. The message from IT said it was routine security protocol updates. Nothing routine about it. Patricia's call came through at 6:30. Audrey, we need to talk. Derek has requested that you be reassigned. I'm sorry, but I don't have a choice in this. Reassigned to what? We'll discuss it when you come in. I arrived at work at 7:15, earlier than usual. The building was mostly empty. I took the elevator to the 5th floor where my office was located, or where it had been located. My nameplate was gone from the door. Inside, the office was empty. My desk, my files, my pictures, everything had been removed overnight. Patricia found me standing there. Your new workspace is in the basement. Legacy data review. Your things have been moved. The basement. I couldn't quite process it. Patricia, what's happening? I'm following instructions, Audrey. Derek submitted a formal request to have you transferred. Given the circumstances at last night's dinner, HR agreed it was best to separate you from current project work. The basement workspace wasn't even a real office. It was a converted storage room with no windows, fluorescent lights that buzzed, and boxes of old files stacked against the walls. My desk and computer had been crammed into a corner. I logged into my computer. Every current project had been removed from my access list. My email showed I'd been taken off all distribution lists. A memo in my inbox indicated my new role, reviewing archive data files for potential storage consolidation. It was busy work. Career purgatory. My old office, the one with windows and natural light near the executive floor, had already been given to someone else. A new hire, someone Derek approved of. I sat in that basement room for an hour, trying to process what had happened. Derek was rewriting the narrative, making it look like I was unstable or incompetent, making sure no one would take me seriously. But I'd been preparing for something like this. 3 weeks ago, when I'd first started piecing together the extent of the fraud, I'd made backup copies of everything. Not on the company's server where Derek could delete them, but on a personal USB drive I kept in my purse. I'd printed out key documents and stored them in a safety deposit box at my bank. I pulled out the USB drive and reviewed what I had. The evidence was damning. Derek's division had been inflating revenue numbers and hiding losses for at least 2 years. The method was sophisticated but not invisible. He'd been misclassifying expenses, creating fake vendor contracts, manipulating regional performance metrics to make his division look more profitable than it actually was. The total amount was staggering. Approximately $18 million in fraudulent reporting. Maybe more. I mapped out the timeline. The fraud had started 24 months ago, right after Derek got his promotion to vice president. He'd been under enormous pressure to deliver results, to justify his new salary and bonus structure. So he'd manufactured the results. I needed allies, people who would believe me, who had the power to do something about this. I thought of Jennifer, a colleague who'd left the company 6 months ago. She'd worked in Derek's division. We'd been friendly. I found her number and called. Audrey, wow, I haven't heard from you in forever. Jennifer, I need to ask you something. When you left the company, was it really voluntary? Silence on the other end. Then, why are you asking? Because I think Derek forced you out. And I think it's because you questioned his numbers. Another long pause. How did you know? Because he's doing the same thing to me. Jennifer met me for coffee that afternoon. She'd kept documentation, afraid something like this might happen. She'd questioned discrepancies in quarterly reports, pointed out that certain vendor payments didn't make sense. Derek had become hostile. Within 2 weeks, she'd been accused of performance issues and given the choice to resign or be terminated. I was too scared to fight it, she said. I just wanted out. But I kept copies of everything, just in case. She handed me a folder. Inside were emails, spreadsheets, and notes documenting the same patterns I'd found. Independent confirmation that the fraud was real and systematic. Thank you, I said. This helps more than you know. Be careful, Audrey. Derek is dangerous when he feels threatened. I tried to get a meeting with Marcus, our CEO. His executive assistant, Linda, was sympathetic but hesitant. Derek's been in Marcus's office twice today already, she said quietly. I don't know what they're discussing, but Marcus seems stressed. I need 15 minutes. That's all. This is important. Linda looked at me for a long moment. I'll see what I can do. 2 days later, Patricia called me into her office. She looked uncomfortable, like she'd rather be anywhere else. Audrey, we need to discuss some concerns that have been raised about your performance. What concerns? She opened a file folder. Inside were printed complaints supposedly from team members. I scanned them quickly. They claimed I was difficult to work with, made frequent errors, missed deadlines. Patricia, these are fake. Look at the dates. I wasn't even working on those projects. And these team members, half of them don't exist in our department. Derek brought these to HR this morning. I'm required to address them. Derek fabricated these documents. I'm putting you on a performance improvement plan. 30 days. You'll need to meet specific metrics. A performance improvement plan. Every employee knew what that meant. It was the first step toward termination. Create a paper trail of supposed poor performance, then fire the person with legal cover. This is retaliation. I pointed out fraud, and now Derek is trying to destroy my career. Patricia's expression was pained. I'm just following protocol, Audrey. At home, things were falling apart just as quickly. Derek had become cold and controlling. He monitored my phone, asked where I was going, who I was talking to. When I mentioned meeting Jennifer for coffee, he interrogated me for 20 minutes about what we'd discussed. He started telling our friends a different story. That I was going through something, that I was acting erratically at work, that he was worried about me. Our friends, most of whom were his colleagues and their spouses, started treating me differently. Sympathetic, but distant. Like I was fragile, like I might break at any moment. Derek's sister Amanda called me. Derek mentioned you've been under a lot of stress. Have you thought about seeing someone? A therapist might help. I don't need a therapist, Amanda. I need people to listen to what I'm telling them about Derek. He's worried about you, Audrey. We all are. I realized Derek had been laying groundwork, planting seeds of doubt about my mental state. When the fraud came to light, he could claim his wife was unstable, that her accusations were the product of stress or delusion. Marcus finally agreed to meet with me. Linda scheduled it for 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning. I prepared everything, organized my evidence, practiced what I would say. I arrived 10 minutes early and waited in the reception area outside Marcus's office. At exactly 10 o'clock, Linda gestured for me to enter. I walked in and froze. Derek was already there, sitting in one of the leather chairs across from Marcus's desk. Next to him was Richard, the company's head attorney. Audrey, please sit down, Marcus said. He looked tired and disappointed. What is Derek doing here? We're all going to discuss this situation together. Derek has raised some serious concerns. Derek leaned back in his chair, completely at ease. Audrey has been accessing confidential files without authorization. We believe she may be sharing proprietary information with competitors. That's insane. I haven't shared anything with anyone. Richard opened his briefcase and pulled out printed documents. We have evidence of unauthorized database access, downloaded files, and communications with former employees who now work for competing firms. Jennifer doesn't work for a competitor. She left the industry entirely. Nevertheless, Richard continued, the unauthorized access alone is grounds for termination and potential legal action. Marcus rubbed his temples. Audrey, I'm disappointed. I thought you understood professional boundaries. I understand fraud when I see it. That's what this is about. Derek is trying to silence me before I can expose what he's been doing. What I've been doing? Derek's voice was sharp. I've been running a successful division while you've been obsessing over conspiracy theories. You're embarrassing yourself. The numbers don't lie. Numbers can be misinterpreted by someone who doesn't understand them. You're an analyst, Audrey, not an auditor, not a forensic accountant. You're out of your depth. Richard set another document on Marcus's desk. We've also received reports that Audrey has been behaving erratically. Mood swings, paranoid accusations, conflicts with coworkers. Those reports are fabricated. Marcus stood. Audrey, I'm suspending you pending investigation. Effective immediately. HR will contact you about next steps. You're making a mistake. Derek is the one who should be investigated. Security will escort you out. I'm sorry. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. I'd worked at this company for 7 years. Now I was being walked out like a criminal. Derek followed me into the hallway. When the guards were out of earshot, he leaned close. I warned you. You should have stayed in your lane. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You're finished here. Accept it. They gave me 15 minutes to clean out my basement workspace. The guards watched while I packed my few personal items into a cardboard box. My access badge was deactivated. My work laptop was confiscated. I walked out of the building at 11:15 on a Thursday morning, carrying a box with a coffee mug, a plant, and a framed photo of my parents. 7 years of work, reduced to this. The suspension was without pay. That detail hit me when I met with Catherine from HR 2 days later. She delivered the news in her office with corporate efficiency. No emotion, just facts. The investigation could take 6 to 8 weeks. During that time, you're not to contact any company employees or attempt to access any company systems. How am I supposed to pay my bills without income? That's not something I can advise you on. You should have considered the consequences before accessing confidential files. I was doing my job. I was identifying fraud. Catherine's expression didn't change. The company attorney will be in touch regarding the unauthorized access investigation. I suggest you retain legal counsel. Retain legal counsel. With what money? I went home and started looking at our finances. That's when I discovered the real trap Derek had set. We had joint bank accounts. We'd always kept our finances together, with Derek managing everything. He was better with money, he'd always said. I'd trusted him. Now I saw that he'd moved most of our savings, approximately $47,000, to an account that only had his name on it. He'd done it 3 days ago, right after the dinner party confrontation. When I asked him about it that evening, he was matter of fact. I'm protecting our assets during this investigation. Once you're cleared of wrongdoing, I'll move it back. That's my money too. It's our money. And I'm managing it responsibly while you're acting irresponsibly. I had my personal checking account with about $3,000. The mortgage payment was $2,200. The car payments were another $600. Insurance, utilities, groceries. The math didn't work. Derek, I need access to our savings. I don't have income right now. Then maybe you should have thought about that before trying to destroy my career over some misunderstanding about accounting procedures. It's not a misunderstanding. You committed fraud. Keep saying that, and you'll end up with nothing. No job, no money, no marriage. Is that what you want? Over the next week, our social life disintegrated. The friends we'd made together, the couples we had dinner with, the people we spent weekends with, they all vanished. I'd see posts on social media, gatherings at someone's house, dinners at restaurants, weekend trips. Everyone was there except me. They didn't even try to be subtle about it. I texted Lauren, someone I'd considered a close friend. Is everything okay? Haven't heard from you in a while. Her response came 3 hours later. Things have been busy. Hope you're doing well. I called Megan, another friend from our couples group. She answered, but sounded uncomfortable. I'm sorry, Audrey. Derek explained what happened. The thing at work. He's really worried about you. What did he tell you? That you've been under a lot of stress. That you made some accusations that weren't true. That you might need help. I don't need help. I need people to believe me. I'm sure it will all work out. I have to go. Take care of yourself. Derek's narrative had spread through our entire social circle. I was the unstable wife having some kind of breakdown. He was the concerned husband trying to support me through it. Everyone believed him. My own family started to doubt me. My mother called. Sweetheart, Derek said you've been having a hard time at work. Are you okay? Mom, I'm fine. Derek is lying. He sounded very worried. He said you'd been making accusations against him, that you'd gotten in trouble with your company. Because I found evidence that he's been committing fraud. A long pause. Honey, that's a very serious accusation. Are you sure? I mean, Derek has always been so successful. That's exactly the problem. His success is built on fraud. Maybe you should take a step back. Get some perspective. This kind of conflict in a marriage, it's not healthy. Have you two considered counseling? I don't need counseling. I need people to listen to me. My sister Stephanie was more direct. Audrey, you're acting paranoid. Derek loves you. He wouldn't commit fraud. Maybe the stress of your job got to be too much. Stephanie, I have evidence. Evidence can be misinterpreted. You're not an accountant. Maybe you got confused. Nobody believed me. My husband, my friends, my family. They all thought I was wrong, confused, stressed, unstable. I spent my days alone in our house while Derek went to work. I'd wake up after he left, spend hours reviewing my evidence, trying to find something I'd missed, some way to make people see what I was seeing. The isolation was crushing. I'd always been social, surrounded by people. Now I was alone with my thoughts, and my spreadsheets, and my growing doubt. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'd misunderstood something. Maybe Derek was right and I was just an analyst who didn't understand complex accounting. But no, the numbers were clear. The fake vendors were real. The inflated revenue was documented. I wasn't crazy. Derek came home late every night. He'd eat dinner alone in his study, then go to bed without speaking to me. We lived in the same house but moved around each other like strangers. One night, about 3 weeks into my suspension, he broke the silence. I've been thinking, he said. Maybe we need to rethink this marriage. I looked up from my laptop. What? You're not happy. I'm not happy. Maybe we're not good for each other anymore. You want a divorce? Because I found out about your fraud? I want a divorce because you've become obsessed with destroying me. That's not a marriage. I didn't destroy anything. You did that yourself when you decided to cook the books. He shook his head, like I was a child who couldn't understand basic logic. If you can't get yourself together, we're done. I'll file papers. It was a threat and a promise. Agree that I was wrong, let him win, or lose everything. The next morning I received an email to my personal account. No name, just a subject line. You're not alone. The message was brief. You're not crazy. Others have noticed. Check the vendor payments to Cascade Solutions and Summit Consulting. They don't exist. Keep fighting. It was signed, a friend. I pulled up my files and focused on those two vendors. Cascade Solutions and Summit Consulting. I'd noted them before but hadn't dug deep. I searched for them online. No websites, no business listings, no employee profiles on professional networking sites, no addresses except P.O. boxes. I searched state business registries. Neither company was registered in any state. These weren't just suspicious vendors. They were complete fabrications. The payments to these fake companies totaled over $4 million in the past 18 months. Every check had been approved by Derek. I had my proof. Not just accounting irregularities, but outright fraud. Money flowing to companies that didn't exist, presumably into accounts Derek controlled. I saved everything, backed it up to cloud storage and my USB drive. This was the evidence I needed. That afternoon, Derek came home early. He had moving boxes. What are those for? For you. I've filed for divorce. And I got a temporary restraining order. You need to leave. He handed me papers, legal documents, a petition for divorce citing irreconcilable differences, and a restraining order claiming I'd been threatening and unstable. I haven't threatened you. The court disagrees. You have 24 hours to move out. Stay at least 500 feet away from me. Derek, this is our house. It's my house. The mortgage is in my name. You'll get what you're entitled to in the settlement, but for now, you need to leave. He'd planned this perfectly. Isolated me, destroyed my credibility, painted me as unstable, then removed me from our home. Now no one would believe anything I said. I called my mother. She was sympathetic, but cautious. Maybe some space is good right now. You can stay in a hotel for a few days until things calm down. Things aren't going to calm down, Mom. Derek is trying to destroy me. Honey, I think you need to see someone. Talk to a professional. Derek mentioned he's worried about your mental state. Even my mother thought I was the problem. I packed 2 suitcases and left. Derek watched from the doorway, arms crossed. He didn't help, didn't speak, just watched me load my car and drive away. I found an extended stay motel near the highway, $200 a week. A small room with a kitchenette, a bed, and a TV that got basic cable. This was my new home. I sat on the bed and cried for the first time since this all started. I'd lost my job, my income, my home, my friends, my family's trust. I had $3,000 in the bank and no idea what to do next. Derek had won. The motel room smelled like old carpet and cleaning chemicals. I lay on the bed and stared at the water-stained ceiling tiles, counting them to avoid thinking about how thoroughly my life had fallen apart. 1 week without a paycheck. My checking account was down to $2,700 after paying for the motel and basic necessities. The restraining order hearing was scheduled in 10 days. Derek's attorney had painted a picture of an obsessed, unstable woman who'd fixated on destroying her successful husband's career. My sister Stephanie called. "Mom's worried about you. She thinks you should check into a facility, just for evaluation." A facility? You mean a psychiatric hospital? Just to make sure you're okay. Derek's really concerned. Derek is the one who should be evaluated. He's a criminal. Audrey, please. We're all trying to help you. I hung up. Even my own sister thought I was crazy. The company investigator, a man named Douglas, who worked for the law firm representing Derek's interests, called 2 days later. He wanted to interview me about the unauthorized file access. "I'd like to schedule a time for you to come in and answer some questions. I need to consult with an attorney first." "That's your right, but I should inform you that failure to cooperate with this investigation may result in criminal charges being filed." Criminal charges for uncovering fraud. I couldn't afford an attorney. I'd called 3 law firms. The retainer fees ranged from $5,000 to $10,000. I had less than $3,000 to my name. I finally found a legal aid attorney, Susan, who agreed to consult with me for free. She was overworked and underpaid, handling dozens of cases. "Your situation is complicated," she said after reviewing the restraining order paperwork. "Derek's attorney has built a strong case for your behavior being erratic and threatening, because I found evidence of his fraud, which you accessed through company systems, potentially without proper authorization. I work there. I had access. Had. Past tense. And according to their complaint, you exceeded your authorization level. So what do I do?" Susan sighed. "Honestly, the investigator wants you to sit down and answer questions, which will probably be used against you in criminal proceedings. The restraining order hearing is coming up, where Derek will claim you're dangerous. Your employer has suspended you and may terminate you. And you're in the middle of a divorce, with no income and limited assets. So I'm screwed. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you're in a very difficult position. My recommendation is to seriously consider settling, take what you can get, and walk away." Let Derek win? Let Derek get away with whatever he did, yes. Sometimes survival is more important than justice. I left her office feeling hollow. Maybe she was right. Maybe I should just give up, take whatever settlement Derek offered, move to another city, start over. I went back to the motel and looked at Derek's social media. He'd posted a photo from a company event. He was standing with other executives, smiling, holding a plaque. "Employee Excellence Award," it said. He looked successful, confident, untouchable. The comments were full of congratulations. "Well deserved. So proud of you. Amazing accomplishment." I saw he'd changed his relationship status to, "It's complicated." There were photos of him with a woman I didn't recognize. Young, blonde, professional-looking. Her name was Courtney. She worked in marketing. They'd been tagged at 3 different company events in the past 2 weeks. He'd moved on. Already had someone new. While I was living in a motel, he was being celebrated and dating and living the life we used to share. I closed my laptop and stared at the wall. Maybe Susan was right. Maybe this fight wasn't worth it. My phone buzzed. Another email from a friend. This one had an attachment. I opened it carefully, worried it might be malware. It was a PDF of internal emails. Exchanges between Derek and someone named Charles Winston. I recognized the name. Charles was on the board of directors, specifically the Audit Committee. The emails were damning. Derek and Charles discussing how to manage the audit concerns and keep the regional numbers favorable. Charles offering advice on smoothing over discrepancies and maintaining confidence. The dates went back 2 years. This wasn't just Derek acting alone. He had help from the board level. The emails also referenced pressure from a private equity firm called Redstone Partners. They were considering acquiring the company. The acquisition would be based on company valuation, which depended on strong financial performance. Derek had been inflating numbers to make the company look more valuable. If the acquisition went through, he'd get a massive payout. This was bigger than I'd realized. This wasn't just career advancement fraud. This was securities fraud affecting potential investors. I read through the emails 3 times. Then I researched the board of directors. Charles Winston had been on the board for 12 years. He chaired the audit committee. He was entrenched, powerful, connected. But there were other board members. 2 of them were relatively new, appointed in the past year as part of governance reforms. Elizabeth Morgan, former CEO of a Fortune 500 company. She'd built her reputation on transparency and corporate ethics. She'd written articles about the importance of whistleblower protections. Jonathan Hayes, a finance professor at a major university. He specialized in fraud detection and had testified as an expert witness in several high-profile cases. These 2 weren't part of the old guard. They might actually listen. I spent the next 2 days building my case. I compiled everything. The original audit discrepancies showing the $12 million variance. The fake vendor payments to Cascade Solutions and Summit Consulting totaling $4 million. The internal emails between Derek and Charles. Jennifer's documentation from when she'd been forced out. The anonymous tips from a friend. I created a timeline showing exactly how the fraud had been executed, how Derek had systematically inflated revenue and hidden losses, how he'd created shell companies to siphon money, how he'd intimidated employees who questioned the numbers, how Charles Winston had enabled it from the board level. I calculated the total fraud amount, $22 million over 2 years. I documented the motivation. Derek needed strong performance numbers for his promotion and for the Redstone Partners acquisition. Charles needed the acquisition to go through because he owned significant company stock. I showed how they'd covered their tracks. False documentation, destroyed emails, intimidation, and strategic reassignments of anyone who got too close to the truth. Then I wrote a letter, 10 pages, single-spaced, laying out everything with references to supporting documents. I addressed it to Elizabeth Morgan and Jonathan Hayes. I explained my situation honestly. I was a suspended employee, estranged from my husband who was the perpetrator, facing potential criminal charges, but I had credible evidence of massive fraud. I requested a private meeting before the next board meeting, which according to the company calendar was scheduled in 12 days. I printed 2 copies of the letter, and all supporting documents. I found home addresses for Elizabeth and Jonathan through public records. I packaged everything carefully and sent both via certified mail with signature confirmation. Then I waited. 3 days later, at 7 in the morning, there was a knock on my motel room door. I opened it to find 2 police officers and a company security guard. Audrey Henderson? Yes? We have a warrant to search this room for stolen company property. They pushed past me. One officer showed me the warrant. Derek had reported that I'd taken a USB drive containing confidential company data. The warrant authorized seizure of any electronic devices or documents related to my former employment. I watched helplessly as they took my laptop, my USB drive, all my printed documents, every piece of evidence I'd compiled. The company security guard, someone I'd said hello to every morning for 7 years, wouldn't meet my eyes. They were thorough. They searched my suitcases, my purse, even the bathroom. They took everything that looked remotely work-related. Am I being arrested? Not at this time. But you'll need to speak with the district attorney's office. They're reviewing the case for potential charges. After they left, I sat on the bed and tried not to panic. Derek had found out. Somehow, he'd learned about my attempt to reach the board members. He'd moved first, seizing all my evidence before Elizabeth and Jonathan could see it. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Miss Henderson? This is Elizabeth Morgan. My heart stopped. Yes. Hi. I received your letter this morning. The certified mail arrived early. I've been reading through your documentation for the past hour. I need to meet with you. Today. Are you available? The police just took all my evidence. They have a warrant. They took everything. I have your letter and all the attachments you sent. That's enough. Can you meet at 2 o'clock? She gave me an address. A downtown office building, not company property. Come alone. Tell no one. If Derek learns about this meeting, he'll find a way to stop it. Okay, I'll be there. Miss Henderson? Audrey? What you've documented is explosive. If it's accurate, and I believe it is, we're talking about federal crimes. Are you prepared for what comes next? I don't have anything left to lose. Then I'll see you at 2. The office building was 20 stories of steel and glass in the financial district. I parked 3 blocks away and walked, constantly checking behind me. Paranoid, maybe. But Derek had proven he was always 2 steps ahead. Elizabeth Morgan's assistant met me in the lobby. She was professional and discreet, leading me to a private conference room on the 14th floor. Elizabeth was there, along with Jonathan Hayes. Both stood when I entered. Elizabeth was in her early 60s, silver hair cut short, wearing a navy suit that spoke of authority. Jonathan was younger, maybe 50, with wire-rimmed glasses and the slightly rumpled look of academia. "Thank you for coming," Elizabeth said. "Please sit." They'd printed out everything I'd sent them. The documents were spread across the conference table, organized into categories with sticky notes and highlighting. "We've been reading your materials all morning," Jonathan said. "The documentation is thorough, remarkably so. I've been an analyst for 7 years. I know how to build a case." Elizabeth leaned forward. "Audrey, what you've uncovered is massive. This isn't just accounting errors or aggressive revenue recognition. This is systematic fraud involving fake entities, falsified documents, and board-level complicity." "I know. That's why Derek has been so determined to destroy me. The emails between your husband and Charles Winston are particularly damning," Jonathan said. "They show clear intent to deceive. And the timing, with the Redstone acquisition pending, elevates this to securities fraud. Can you do anything about it?" Elizabeth and Jonathan exchanged glances. "We've been concerned about Derek's division for months," Elizabeth said. "The numbers seemed too good to be true. But Charles Winston assured the full board that everything had been audited and verified. As the audit committee chair, his word carried weight. He was lying. He's complicit. We suspected as much. But we needed proof. Your documentation provides that proof. So what happens now?" Jonathan pulled out a calendar. "There's a full board meeting in 9 days. We have the authority as independent directors to call for a special audit committee review. We can present your evidence and demand a formal investigation. Derek will try to stop you." "He'll try," Elizabeth agreed. "But there's a problem. Charles Winston controls the board meeting agenda. If he gets wind of this, he'll bury it. We need to blindside them. Give them no time to prepare a defense." "How?" "There's a procedural rule," Jonathan explained. "Independent board members can invoke an emergency review for matters of fiduciary duty. We can force a session outside the regular meeting schedule. Tomorrow, if necessary." Elizabeth's expression was grave. "But Audrey, you need to understand the risk. If we do this and it fails, if Derek and Charles convince the other board members that your evidence is fabricated or misinterpreted, you'll face the full force of their retaliation. Criminal prosecution, civil suits, complete destruction of your professional reputation. They're already doing that. Not like they would if we fail. Right now, you're a troublesome employee. If we accuse Derek and Charles of federal crimes and can't make it stick, you become a malicious liar. The district attorney will charge you. You could go to prison." I thought about the motel room, the dwindling bank account, the isolation, the restraining order, the divorce, the destroyed friendships. I thought about Derek's smug face and his new girlfriend and his awards and his perfect lies. "I'm in. Tell me what you need." "We need you to testify," Elizabeth said. "Walk the board through what you found, how you found it, what it means. Answer their questions, face their scrutiny. And we need another witness," Jonathan added. "Your evidence is strong, but it's circumstantial. We need someone with direct knowledge of how the fraud was executed. I thought about a friend, the anonymous emailer who'd been feeding me information. I might know someone, an accountant who works in Derek's division. She's been the one sending me tips. Can you get her to come forward? I can try. That evening, I sent an email to a friend at the anonymous address. I explained about the board meeting, about Elizabeth and Jonathan, about the chance to finally expose Derek. I gave my phone number and asked them to call. The phone rang at 9 o'clock. This is Grace Palmer. I've been your friend. We talked for 2 hours. Grace was 53, a senior accountant who'd been with the company for 15 years. She'd watched Derek's rise and seen the manipulation up close. He made me process those fake vendor payments, she said. I questioned them. He told me to mind my own business or I'd lose my job. I have 3 kids in college. I couldn't afford to be unemployed. Grace, will you testify? A long pause. If I do this, I'm done at the company. Derek will make sure of that. If we don't do this, the fraud continues. Other people get hurt. The company gets sold based on fake numbers. Shareholders lose money. Employees lose jobs when the truth eventually comes out. You're asking me to sacrifice my career. I'm asking you to do the right thing. I've already sacrificed everything. I need you with me. Another pause. Then, okay, I'm in. Send me the details. We spent the next 3 days preparing. Elizabeth and Jonathan worked behind the scenes, using their authority as independent directors to force an emergency board session. They cited fiduciary concerns requiring immediate attention. Charles Winston tried to delay it. He claimed scheduling conflicts, argued the matter wasn't truly urgent, but Elizabeth and Jonathan invoked the corporate bylaws. The meeting would happen. Meanwhile, I prepared my testimony with Jonathan's help. He'd been an expert witness in fraud cases. He knew how to present evidence clearly, how to anticipate objections, how to stay calm under hostile questioning. Derek will attack your credibility, he warned. He'll bring up the suspension, the restraining order, paint you as unstable and vindictive. You must stay focused on the facts. Don't get emotional. Don't get defensive. Just present the evidence. Grace came to one of our prep sessions. She brought additional documentation, internal memos, approval chains, email trails showing Derek's direct involvement in creating the fake vendors. I've been documenting everything for 2 years, she said. I was too scared to do anything with it, but I knew someone would need it eventually. The night before the board meeting, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the motel bed, running through my testimony over and over. At 2 in the morning, my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered, heavy breathing on the other end. Then a male voice, distorted, like someone speaking through cloth. You think you're smart? Drop this or you'll regret it. We know where you're staying. We know you're alone. The line went dead. I called Elizabeth immediately, hands shaking. She answered on the second ring. Someone just threatened me. They know where I am. Pack a bag. I'm coming to get you. Right now. Elizabeth arrived 20 minutes later with Jonathan. They drove me to Elizabeth's house in the suburbs, a large colonial with a security system and cameras. You'll stay here tonight, she said. We can't take any chances. Derek knows about the meeting. He has to. How else would someone know to threaten me? Which means he'll come prepared, Jonathan said. He'll have a defense ready. This is going to be harder than we thought. I sat in Elizabeth's guest room, looking at the evidence I'd compiled on my laptop, using the backup files I'd stored in the cloud before the police seized my computer. Derek knew. He'd be ready. He'd try to destroy my credibility completely. But I had Elizabeth and Jonathan. I had Grace. I had the evidence. Tomorrow, one way or another, this would end. Elizabeth's guest room had thick curtains that blocked out the morning light. I woke at 6, disoriented for a moment, before remembering where I was and what day it was. The board meeting was at 10. Elizabeth had laid out professional clothes for me. A charcoal gray suit, white blouse, modest heels. She was taller than me, but the fit was close enough. You need to look credible, she said over coffee in her kitchen. Derek will try to make you look unstable. We counter that with professionalism. Jonathan arrived at 8. He briefed me one final time, going through potential questions and challenges. Marcus will be there, your CEO, He suspended you, so he may be defensive about that decision. Helen, the CFO, will ask technical questions about the accounting. Thomas, the COO, tends to side with executives. But there are 3 other independent board members besides Elizabeth and me. If we can convince them, we have a majority. And Charles Winston? He'll fight us every step of the way. He's complicit. He's going to protect himself and Derek. We drove separately to headquarters. I hadn't been in the building since security had escorted me out 6 weeks ago. Walking through the lobby felt surreal. Linda, Marcus's assistant, met us in the elevator bay. She looked at me with something like sympathy. The board is gathering now. Elizabeth and Jonathan will go in first. You and Miss Palmer will wait in the adjacent conference room until you're called. Grace was already there, sitting rigidly in one of the leather chairs. She looked terrified. I almost didn't come, she said. I sat in my car for 20 minutes trying to decide. Thank you for being here. I've worked at this company for 15 years. I've watched good people get crushed by executives who only care about their bonuses. I'm tired of being quiet. Through the wall, we could hear muffled voices. The board meeting had started. 30 minutes passed. Every minute felt like an hour. Then the door opened. Jonathan stood there. We're ready for you. The executive conference room was on the 15th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 14 people sat around a massive mahogany table. Marcus at the head. Derek halfway down the right side. Charles Winston directly across from Derek. Elizabeth and Jonathan near the far end. Other board members I recognized from company newsletters. Derek's eyes locked on me as I entered. His expression was cold fury barely contained. Marcus looked uncomfortable. This is highly irregular. I'm not sure having a suspended employee at a board meeting is appropriate. She's here as a witness to financial irregularities, Elizabeth said. This is a matter of fiduciary duty. Charles Winston leaned back in his chair. We've been over this. The audit committee reviewed these supposed irregularities months ago. Everything was explained. Not everything, Jonathan said. Please, let Miss Henderson present what she found. I sat in the empty chair they'd placed at the end of the table. I opened my folder and pulled out the first document. 6 months ago, I noticed discrepancies in the Southern Plains Division quarterly reports. Revenue numbers that didn't match actual project deliverables. A variance of approximately $12 million. Derek interrupted immediately. Those were timing differences in revenue recognition. Standard accounting practice. This has already been addressed. It wasn't standard, I continued. I cross-referenced the reported revenue with actual customer payments. The money didn't exist. Helen, the CFO, leaned forward. What do you mean the money didn't exist? The revenue was recorded, but the corresponding cash receipts never appeared. Derek's division was booking sales that hadn't actually happened. Derek laughed. It was sharp and dismissive. This is exactly the problem with letting an analyst interpret complex financial data. She doesn't understand accrual accounting or the timing of cash flows. I understand perfectly, I said, keeping my voice level, which is why I dug deeper. I found payments to 2 vendors, Cascade Solutions and Summit Consulting. Over $4 million in payments over 18 months. Consulting services, Derek said smoothly. Specialized expertise we needed for regional expansion. Really? Elizabeth slid a document across the table. Because according to state business registries, neither company exists. No business license, no tax records, no registered employees. Derek's face paled slightly, but he recovered quickly. Then there's been an administrative error in the vendor setup. I'll have accounting investigate. It's not an error, I said. It's fraud. Those companies are shells. The money went to accounts you control. Charles Winston slammed his hand on the table. This is outrageous. You're accusing a respected executive of criminal activity based on what? A disgruntled ex-wife's conspiracy theories? Based on evidence, Jonathan said. He pulled out another document. Internal emails between Derek and Charles discussing how to manage audit concerns and keep numbers favorable for the pending acquisition. The room went silent. Marcus picked up the email printout and read it. His expression darkened. Charles stood abruptly. Those are privileged communications. You had no right to access those. They were provided by a whistleblower, Elizabeth said. which is perfectly legal. Derek turned his attention to destroying me. Even if there were accounting irregularities, which there aren't, why should we believe anything from this woman? She was suspended for unauthorized access to confidential files. She stole company property. There's a restraining order against her because she's been unstable and threatening. She's obsessed with destroying me because our marriage failed. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. She violated professional boundaries, Derek continued. She accessed files she had no authorization to view. She downloaded confidential data. She's facing potential criminal charges. And now she's spinning these accusations because she can't handle the fact that I'm successful and she's not. Thomas, the COO, nodded. The suspension was for cause. We have documentation of performance issues. Fabricated documentation, I said. Look at the dates on those complaints. They reference projects I never worked on, colleagues who don't exist in my department. Or you're misremembering, Derek said. You've been under a lot of stress. You've made mistakes. He was smooth, deflecting every point, casting doubt, making me seem unreliable. Helen asked a technical question about revenue recognition timing. I answered it correctly, citing the specific accounting standards. She looked surprised. But Derek countered with more technical jargon, making it sound complicated and uncertain, making it seem like a good-faith disagreement between professionals rather than deliberate fraud. Charles kept interjecting, backing Derek up, dismissing the evidence as misinterpretation. I could feel the room turning. The board members looked confused. Who to believe? The successful executive or the suspended employee with an axe to grind? Then Jonathan spoke up. We have another witness, someone with direct knowledge of how these transactions were processed. Grace entered. She looked small and scared, but she walked to the table and sat down. Derek's eyes widened. Grace? What are you doing? I processed the payments Derek is discussing, Grace said, her voice shaking. He instructed me to code them as consulting services. When I questioned the vendors because I couldn't find any verification information, he told me to stop asking questions or I'd be fired. That's a lie, Derek said flatly. Grace, I don't know what Audrey told you, but this is defamation. Grace pulled out a folder. I have the approval emails, direct instructions from Derek to bypass normal vendor verification procedures, to expedite payments without the usual controls. She slid the emails across the table. Marcus picked them up and read them. Derek leaned forward, trying to seem reasonable. Those emails are being taken out of context. We were working on a time-sensitive project. I authorized bypassing some paperwork to move things faster. That's not fraud. It's management discretion. Management discretion doesn't include creating fake companies, Jonathan said. Derek tried a different approach. Even if there were accounting errors, and I'm not saying there were, they were unintentional. I trusted my team. If mistakes were made, it was because of poor oversight, not malicious intent. Really? Elizabeth produced another document, because according to the divorce financial disclosure, you received a $200,000 bonus last year based on your division's performance. Performance that was fraudulently inflated. My bonus was based on legitimate metrics. Metrics you falsified. The argument went back and forth. Derek was fighting hard, deflecting, minimizing, attacking credibility. Charles was backing him up, trying to shut down the investigation. But the evidence was piling up. The fake vendors, the internal emails, Grace's testimony, the timing of the bonuses, the pressure from the Redstone acquisition. Marcus looked at Charles. You told this board 6 months ago that the audit committee had reviewed everything and found no issues. Was that true? Charles's expression hardened. I was given information by Derek. If there were problems, I wasn't aware of them. But these emails show you discussing the need to keep numbers favorable. Taken out of context. Show me the context that makes this appropriate. Charles couldn't. He blustered about proper procedures and misunderstandings, but he couldn't explain away his own words. Sarah, one of the other board members, asked a direct question. Derek, did you create fake vendor accounts? No. Then, where did Cascade Solutions and Summit Consulting go? I don't know. That's an accounting question. Grace spoke up again. I can tell you where they went. I have the routing information. The payments went to accounts in Delaware with Derek's name on the signature authorization. Derek exploded. This is a setup. My ex-wife has orchestrated this entire thing. She's manipulated Grace. She's forged documents. She's trying to destroy me because she's bitter about our divorce. His loss of composure was jarring. The smooth executive facade cracked, revealing the anger underneath. Then explain the emails, Elizabeth said calmly. Explain the fake vendors. Explain the discrepancies. Explain why your reported revenue doesn't match actual cash receipts. I don't have to explain anything to you. You're not investigators. You're board members who've been manipulated by a vindictive woman. Marcus stood. That's enough. Derek, I think you should step out while we discuss this. I'm not going anywhere. This is my career you're destroying based on lies. Then we'll take a vote, Elizabeth said. All in favor of authorizing an independent forensic audit of Derek's division? Hands went up. Elizabeth, Jonathan, 3 other independent board members, 6 out of 14. All opposed? Charles, Derek, and 3 others who were close to Derek. 5 votes. Marcus hadn't voted yet. As CEO and board chair, his vote would break the tie. Everyone looked at him. He sat there, staring at the evidence spread across the table. The silence stretched. Then the door opened. 2 men in dark suits entered. They had badges. I'm Special Agent Morrison, FBI. This is Agent Chen from the Securities and Exchange Commission. We have a federal investigation into securities fraud related to this company. Derek Henderson, we need to speak with you. The room erupted. Board members talking over each other. Charles going pale. Derek standing, looking panicked. Elizabeth had called them. 3 days ago, after receiving my letter, she'd contacted the FBI and SEC with the evidence. They'd been building their case ever since. We have a warrant to seize financial records related to the Southern Plains Division, Agent Morrison said. We'll need access to your servers and accounting systems. Derek looked at me, pure hatred in his eyes. I'll destroy you for this. You already tried, I said. Charles Winston stood. I resign from this board effective immediately. He walked out before anyone could respond. Marcus looked shell-shocked. This is a disaster. This is accountability, Elizabeth said. Derek was escorted from the room by the federal agents. As he passed me, he leaned close. This isn't over. But it was. He just didn't know it yet. The board meeting dissolved into chaos after Derek and the federal agents left. Marcus and the remaining board members huddled with the company attorneys. Helen, the CFO, looked like she might be sick. Thomas kept asking if the company could survive this. I sat there, shaking, as the reality sank in. I'd done it. After weeks of isolation, threats, and manipulation, I'd finally been heard. Elizabeth touched my shoulder. You should go. The attorneys will want to interview you later, but for now, you've done your part. Grace and I left together. In the elevator, she started crying. I can't believe I actually did that. 15 years at this company. I just ended my career. You did the right thing. The right thing doesn't pay my bills. But she was wrong about that. Over the following weeks, as the investigation expanded, Grace became a protected whistleblower. The company couldn't retaliate against her without facing federal charges. She was eventually promoted to finance director as part of the corporate reforms. The FBI and SEC investigation moved quickly. Derek's fraud totaled $22 million. The fake vendors were traced to offshore accounts controlled by Derek and Charles Winston. The money had been systematically siphoned out of the company for 2 years. Multiple employees came forward with stories of Derek's intimidation and manipulation. People who'd been forced out for asking questions. Others who'd been pressured to falsify reports. A pattern of abuse and corruption that went deeper than even I'd realized. Derek was arrested 3 weeks after the board meeting. Bail was set at $1 million. He couldn't make it. He spent 2 months in jail before his attorney negotiated a plea deal. He ultimately pleaded guilty to wire fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy. The sentence was 8 years in federal prison. He was also ordered to pay restitution of the full $22 million, which he didn't have. His assets were seized. His reputation was destroyed. Charles Winston was charged as a co-conspirator. He received 6 years. The audit committee he'd chaired was disbanded and reformed with completely independent members. For me, the vindication was immediate but overwhelming. The company lifted my suspension the day after the board meeting. Marcus called me personally to apologize. I should have listened to you. I should have investigated instead of taking Derek's word. I'm sorry. The HR director, Catherine, who'd handled my suspension with such cold efficiency, was fired. The fabricated complaints against Derek were removed from my personnel file. The restraining order was dissolved. The criminal charges for theft of company property were dropped. But the damage to my personal life took longer to heal. My mother called, sobbing. I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have supported you. You believed what Derek told you. He's very convincing. That's not an excuse. You're my daughter. I should have trusted you. My sister Stephanie drove 3 hours to see me. She brought flowers and wine and apologies. I called you paranoid. I thought you were having a breakdown. I'm so ashamed. You didn't know. None of you knew. But we should have. We should have given you the benefit of the doubt. The friends who'd abandoned me tried to reconnect. Awkward messages and invitations. Most of them I ignored. Some bridges, once burned, aren't worth rebuilding. But a few, the ones who acknowledged their mistakes and showed genuine remorse, I slowly let back into my life. Jennifer, the former employee who'd been forced out, called to congratulate me. You did what I was too scared to do. You stood up to him. I couldn't have done it without your documentation. You kept those records for a reason. I kept them because I knew someone would need them eventually. I'm glad it was you. The company offered me a new position, Director of Internal Audit and Compliance, a major promotion with a salary increase of 60%. I'd be responsible for implementing new fraud detection systems and rebuilding the culture of accountability. I accepted. Elizabeth Morgan became a mentor. We met for coffee once a week. She shared stories from her decades in corporate leadership, lessons about integrity and courage. You showed extraordinary bravery, she said. Most people would have given up. I almost did. Multiple times. But you didn't. That's what matters. Jonathan Hayes offered to be a professional reference for the rest of my life. He also invited me to guest lecture in his fraud detection course. Your case will be taught in business schools. It's a textbook example of how one person with integrity can take down systemic corruption. The divorce was finalized quickly. Derek's attorney tried to negotiate a favorable settlement, but given his criminal conviction, I had leverage. I received half of Derek's remaining assets before they were seized for restitution. It wasn't much, but it was fair. I learned that Courtney, the young marketing executive Derek had been dating, left him the day he was arrested. She posted on social media about the importance of integrity and values. The irony wasn't lost on me. 6 months after the board meeting, I moved into a new apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. 2 bedrooms, natural light, a balcony with a view of the park. I furnished it slowly, deliberately, choosing pieces that felt like me rather than us. I started dating again. Slowly, carefully. My sister introduced me to Nathan, a middle school teacher who knew nothing about corporate finance, and found the whole story fascinating but not defining. He liked hiking and reading and cooking. He was kind and stable and unimpressed by corporate titles or power. You're probably the bravest person I've ever met, he said on our 3rd date. I'm not brave. I was just stubborn. Same thing sometimes. The company recovered. The Redstone acquisition fell through, of course. No private equity firm wants to buy a company embroiled in fraud scandal. But under Marcus's leadership, with new board oversight and reformed practices, the company rebuilt its reputation. They implemented whistleblower protections inspired by my experience. Anonymous reporting channels, protection against retaliation, regular third-party audits. I was asked to speak at an industry conference about fraud detection, then another, and another. I became known as an expert in corporate ethics and internal controls. People wanted to hear my story. At one conference, a young analyst approached me afterward. I think I've found something wrong at my company, but I'm scared. What if I'm wrong? What if they retaliate? I looked at her, seeing myself a year ago. Document everything. Find allies. Trust your instincts. And remember that your integrity is worth more than your comfort. But what if I lose my job? You might. I did. But I got it back. Better than before. And more importantly, I got my self-respect back. A year after that board meeting, the company held an ethics award ceremony. I received recognition for integrity and courage. Elizabeth and Grace stood with me on stage. The photo from that night sits on my desk now, in my corner office with windows and natural light and a view of the city. I think about the dinner party sometimes. Derek's words, "She's just an analyst, but I'm the executive." I realize now that he was trying to make me small, trying to define my worth by my title, my position relative to his. He needed me to be less than him so he could feel secure in his stolen success. But I was never just anything. I was an analyst with integrity, a wife who refused to enable corruption, a woman who chose truth over comfort. The path I walked was brutal. I lost my job, my income, my home, my marriage, my social circle, and for a while even my family's trust. I lived in a motel room with dwindling savings and no idea if I'd ever recover. But here's what I gained: my integrity, my self-respect, the knowledge that when it mattered most, I did the right thing. I learned that sometimes the right path is the hardest path. That speaking truth to power comes with a cost. That standing alone is terrifying but not impossible. I learned that allies emerge when you need them. Elizabeth and Jonathan could have ignored my letter. Grace could have stayed silent. Jennifer could have deleted her files and moved on. But they didn't. People of integrity recognize it in others. I learned that the system, for all its flaws, can work. It took federal intervention and months of investigation, but justice prevailed. Derek went to prison. Charles lost his position. The company reformed. Most importantly, I learned that you are never as powerless as you feel. Even when Derek had stripped away my job, my money, my home, my reputation, I still had my voice. I still had the truth. And that was enough. The junior analysts who work for me now sometimes ask for advice. How do you navigate corporate politics? How do you advance your career? How do you deal with difficult executives? I tell them, do good work. Maintain your integrity. When you see something wrong, say something. Yes, there will be consequences. Yes, people will doubt you. Yes, you might suffer in the short term, but your conscience is worth protecting. Your integrity is worth fighting for. I tell them about the audit fraud, about Derek's manipulation, about the weeks in the motel room when I thought I'd lost everything. And I did lose everything, I say, for a while. But then I got it back, and better than before. Because truth is stronger than lies. Because integrity outlasts corruption. Because one person with courage can change everything. I made a video for the company's new ethics training program. In it, I speak directly to the camera. If you see fraud, speak up. If you witness misconduct, report it. If someone tries to silence you, find another way to be heard. It won't be easy. The people you're exposing will fight back. They'll attack your credibility, isolate you, threaten you. You might lose things you care about, but you'll keep the one thing that truly matters: your integrity. When Derek called me just an analyst, he tried to make me accept his version of my worth, but I chose to define my own worth. I chose to matter. I chose to fight. And that choice changed everything. My phone buzzes. A message from a junior analyst asking for mentorship advice. I smile and type back, "Come by my office tomorrow. I'd be happy to help." I look out the window at the city skyline. The sun is setting, casting golden light across the buildings. I think about how far I've come from that motel room. From that moment of despair when I thought Derek had won. He called me just an analyst, but I brought down an empire of lies. I stood up to power. I refused to be silenced. I'm not just anything. I'm exactly who I was meant to be. Strong, resilient, unafraid. The most powerful thing you can do is refuse to accept someone else's diminished version of who you are. When people try to make you small, choose to be large. When they try to silence you, choose to speak. When they try to defeat you, choose to fight. Because your integrity is yours. Your voice is yours. Your power is yours. And no one, no matter how successful or connected or intimidating, can take that away unless you let them. I didn't let Derek take it. I fought for it. I suffered for it. And ultimately, I won it back. stronger than before. That's my story. That's my lesson. That's what I want you to remember. When you stand at your own crossroads, facing your own Derek, your own moment of truth, remember this. You are not powerless. You are not alone. You are stronger than you think. And just an analyst can change the world. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to stand up to someone in power? Have you ever faced a moment where doing the right thing meant risking everything? What did you do? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experiences matter. Your voice matters. If this story resonated with you, if it gave you courage or hope or validation, please like this video. It helps others find these stories. Subscribe to hear more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Share this with someone who needs to hear that integrity matters, that courage counts, that one person can make a difference. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that truth and integrity still matter in this world. I hope you never have to face what I faced. But if you do, I hope you remember that you're not alone, that others have walked this path before you and survived, that doing the right thing, no matter the cost, is always worth it in the end. Stay strong, stay true, and never let anyone make you less than you are.